Broken heart, I sacrificed everything for them, only to be shut out by my son. Broken heart. I stood outside the big brown gate of my son's house, my suitcase resting by my feet. I had just traveled 4 hours by bus to get here, hoping to spend time with my family. But instead of being welcomed inside, I was met with a cold voice. "Mom, you can't stay here anymore. We have our own life now," my son said, standing in the doorway. His wife stood behind him with her arms folded, her eyes sharp as knives. I froze. My own son, the boy I had carried in my belly, fed with my last dime, and raised with every sacrifice of my life, was shutting me out. "Please, Daniel," I whispered, my voice breaking. "I gave everything for you. Everything." He shook his head, refusing to meet my eyes. Then the door closed with a heavy thud. I was left standing outside, my heart torn apart, my body trembling. The neighbors peeked from their windows, whispering. The suitcase beside me suddenly felt heavier than my whole life. And that was the moment it hit me. I had sacrificed everything for them, only to be shut out by my own son. But how did it come to this? How did love, sacrifice, and devotion turn into rejection and shame? Let me take you back to where it all began. My name is Margaret. I'm 67 years old, speaking to you right now from Dallas, Texas. Before I continue, please don't forget to like this story, subscribe, and click the notification button for more upcoming stories like this. And tell me in the comments, where in the country are you watching from? I'd love to know. Now let's go back. I was born and raised in a small farming town in Kansas. Life was not easy. My parents were poor, and from the age of 12, I worked in the fields just to help my family eat. But when I grew older, I dreamed of something better. I wanted to be a teacher, to give children the kind of opportunities one never had. That dream was short-lived when I met Charles, my late husband. He was charming, hardworking, and promised me the world. We got married young, and before long we had our first child, Daniel, my pride and joy. Life tested me early. Charles passed away when Daniel was only 7. A car accident snatched him from us one rainy night, and I was left alone with a little boy and no savings. That was when my real sacrifice began. I worked 2 jobs, cleaning offices at night and waitressing at a diner during the day. My hands cracked from washing dishes, and my feet ached from standing. But every penny I earned went to raising Daniel. I wore old clothes, ate scraps, and sometimes went hungry just so he could have proper meals. There was one winter I will never forget. The heater in our small apartment broke down, and I couldn't afford to fix it. I wrapped Daniel in every blanket we had, sitting up through the night to keep the little stove burning, while I shivered in the cold. He never knew that I developed pneumonia that year because I gave my coat to him. But I never complained. He was my son, my only family, and I would have given my life for him. And in many ways I did. As Daniel grew, I pushed him to study hard. I couldn't afford private tutors, but I stayed up late with him, helping with homework, even when my eyes could barely stay open. When he finally got accepted into college, I cried tears of joy. I had to sell the only piece of jewelry Charles left me, our wedding ring, to pay for his first semester. But it didn't matter. My son's future meant more to me than anything else. I worked overtime shifts, skipping rest, just to cover his rent and books. Sometimes my coworkers asked why I looked so tired, but I always answered with a smile. I'm investing in my son's future. And my sacrifices paid off. Daniel graduated, got a good job, and built a comfortable life. I was so proud. I believed all the pain and suffering were worth it. I thought when he succeeded, he would remember the woman who gave everything for him. I thought when he had his own family, I would finally rest in the comfort of their love. But oh, how wrong I was. It all began to change when Daniel met Lisa, the woman who would later become his wife. From the first day, I could see she didn't like me. She was polite in front of Daniel but cold behind his back. She saw me as a burden, not as the mother who gave her son everything. Still, I stayed silent. I didn't want to cause trouble. I told myself Daniel's happiness came first. But slowly things shifted. The phone calls became less frequent. The visits turned shorter. And every time I tried to help, whether it was cooking a meal or babysitting my grandkids, Lisa made me feel unwelcome. I kept telling myself it was just my imagination. But deep down I knew. The day of truth came when I knocked on their door, suitcase in hand, hoping to spend a few weeks with them. My rent had gone up, and I was struggling to keep up. I thought, surely, my son would let me stay until I found a solution. Instead, I was told I didn't belong. The door closed in my face, and my world crumbled. I sat on the steps that night, crying silently, wondering how a mother's sacrifice could end in such rejection. And that was only the beginning of the nightmare, because what happened next that very night outside his door was something I never imagined in my worst dreams. I sat on the cold concrete step outside my son's house, clutching my suitcase like it was the only thing left of me. My heart ached so badly I thought it would stop beating. I had nowhere to go. The streetlights flickered, and the night air grew colder. I pulled my thin sweater tight around me, my body shivering. That was when it happened. A loud crash shattered the silence of the street. I turned my head and saw a shadow moving quickly at the corner. Then, before I could react, a hand snatched at my suitcase. "Hey!" I cried out, holding on as tight as I could. But the thief was strong. He pulled, I pulled back, and in the struggle I lost my balance and fell hard on the pavement. My wrist twisted painfully, but worse than that, the thief managed to snatch my bag and ran down the street. My whole life is in that bag. I screamed after him, but he vanished into the dark. I sat there shaking, my wrists throbbing, my eyes filled with tears. That suitcase held not only my clothes but also my savings, my medicines, and the few photographs I had left of my late husband. In a single moment it was all gone. And what hurt the most? My son's door was only a few feet away. I had knocked on it again, screaming his name, but no one came out. I realized then, I was truly alone. But let me take you back to the times when I thought love and sacrifice meant something. When Daniel was little, he used to cling to me whenever I left for work. "Don't go, Mama," he'd beg, his little arms tight around my waist. I always knelt down, kissed his forehead and whispered, "I'm doing this for you, my boy, so you can have the life I never did." I remember one particular night when I came home late from the diner. My feet were blistered, my back stiff. I found him asleep at the table, his school books scattered around him. He had stayed up waiting for me just to show me he got an A on his math test. My heart swelled with pride that night, and I told myself that all the pain was worth it. Even when the bills piled up, even when I pawned my wedding band, even when I ate stale bread so Daniel could have fresh food, I told myself, one day he'll thank me. One day he'll understand. But now, sitting on the cold pavement outside his door, robbed, hurting, and unwanted, I realized maybe he never would. The life lesson here is this. Sometimes the people we sacrifice the most for are the very ones who turn their backs on us. Still, I refused to give up. I was broken, but not destroyed. I wiped my tears and tried to think. I couldn't stay outside all night. My wrist hurt too much to carry anything, even if I had something left. The only person I could think of was my old friend Helen, who lived 2 neighborhoods away. I forced myself up, clutching my side, and started walking in the dark. Every step felt like dragging a mountain. My shoes were worn thin, my body tired. At my age, walking miles in the middle of the night wasn't just painful, it was dangerous. But I kept going. Because what choice did I have? Halfway through the walk, a car slowed beside me. I froze, fear gripping me. It was midnight. I didn't know if it was help, or more trouble. The car window rolled down slowly, and a man's voice called out, "Ma'am, are you okay? Do you need a ride?" I stood there, trembling, my mind racing. Should I trust him? Or was this the moment something even worse would happen to me? And then, something about the man's face under the dim light made my heart stop. It was someone I never thought I'd see again. The man leaned out of the car window, and when the streetlight hit his face, I gasped so loudly my knees almost gave way. "Margaret? Is that really you?" It was David. David, my first love from high school. The boy who once promised me forever before life took us in different directions. I hadn't seen him in over 40 years. "David," I whispered, my voice shaking. He stepped out of the car, and though age had graced his hair with silver, his eyes were the same, warm and kind. "What on earth are you doing out here at this hour? You look hurt." Tears stung my eyes. I tried to speak, but the words got tangled with my shame. How could I tell him that the son I sacrificed my life for had shut me out? How could I admit I was now nothing but a homeless old woman with nothing left? He didn't wait for my answer. He gently took my arm, noticing the swelling on my wrist. You're hurt. Come on, I'll take you to the hospital first. Then you can tell me everything. I wanted to resist to keep my pride, but I was too weak. I let him guide me into his car, and as we drove under the quiet Texas night sky, memories of my youth with him came rushing back. Back in high school, David was the star football player, and I was the shy girl who worked part-time at the diner to help my parents. We were inseparable until Charles came into my life. Charles was older, steadier, and promised me security. My parents pushed me toward him, and I chose duty over love. David moved away shortly after, and I never saw him again until now. At the hospital, the doctor confirmed my wrist was badly sprained but not broken. As I sat in the waiting room with a bandage, David bought me a cup of tea from the vending machine. Now, he said softly, tell me what happened. I hesitated, then poured out everything: the years of sacrifice, the struggles, the way I raised Daniel alone, and finally the way he turned me away. By the time I finished, my voice was trembling. David shook his head slowly. You deserved better than that, Margaret. A mother's love should never be repaid with rejection. I looked down, ashamed. I gave him everything, David. And now I have nothing. He reached over and placed his hand gently over mine. You're wrong. You still have dignity. You still have strength. And you still have people who care. Even if you've forgotten them. My eyes welled up again. For the first time in years, I felt truly seen. David insisted I stay at his house for the night. He lived alone now. His wife had passed away some years ago, and his children were grown and gone. The thought of sleeping in a warm bed instead of the cold street brought me relief I couldn't describe. When we arrived at his house, he gave me a clean blanket and a guest room. As I lay down, I stared at the ceiling, my mind racing. Part of me was grateful. Part of me was broken. And part of me couldn't stop wondering, what if my life had turned out differently? What if I had chosen David all those years ago instead of Charles? But those thoughts were quickly drowned out by a knock on the door. David's voice came through, urgent. Margaret, come quickly. You need to see this. I hurried out, clutching my bandaged wrist. David was standing in the living room, holding up his phone. His face was pale. Isn't this your son? He asked. I looked at the screen, and nearly collapsed when I saw what was on it. I froze, staring at David's phone. On the screen was a breaking news headline. Local businessman Daniel Carter accused of fraud, facing federal investigation. It was my son. My Daniel. His photo was right there, plastered across the screen. The boy I had raised with every ounce of love in me, now standing in a suit, hand shielding his face from cameras as reporters shouted questions. No! I whispered, my knees buckling. No, this can't be true. David quickly set the phone down and helped me into a chair. Margaret, I'm so sorry. But it's all over the news. They're saying his company took millions from investors. My head spun. Fraud? My Daniel? The son I had starved for, worked for, bled for? I shook my head over and over. He couldn't. He's a good man. He's my boy. But deep down, a cold chill ran through me. I remembered times when he spoke about money with Lisa, his wife. She always pushed him: bigger house, fancier cars, more vacations. I worried about it, but Daniel had brushed me off, saying, Don't worry, Mom, I've got everything under control. Was this what he meant? Was this why he had turned me away? Because he didn't want me anywhere near when the truth came out? David knelt beside me. Listen, Margaret, this is going to get ugly. Reporters will dig into his life, and by extension, yours. My stomach dropped. The shame of being linked to a scandal at my age was almost too much to bear. But then another thought stabbed at me harder. My grandchildren. What would happen to them if their father went to prison? I buried my face in my hands, my tears soaking through. I gave up everything to raise him, David. I wanted him to grow into a man with honor. And now this. David placed a hand on my shoulder. This isn't your fault. Children make their own choices, no matter how much we sacrifice for them. His words comforted me slightly, but guilt still gnawed at my heart. Suddenly, the phone buzzed again. This time, it wasn't a news article, it was a live video clip. Reporters swarming outside Daniel's mansion, Police cars pulling up, flashing lights bouncing across the screen. My breath caught in my throat. That's his house. I cried, pointing. David, that's where I was tonight, where he turned me away. David's expression darkened. Then you need to be careful. If people find out you're connected to him, they may think you knew something, or worse. I shook my head violently. I didn't know anything. But even as I said it, fear filled me. What if the police came looking for me? What if they thought I was hiding something for him? Before I could say more, David's doorbell rang. We both froze. It was past midnight. Who could it be? David glanced at me, then walked cautiously to the door. He peeked through the window, his jaw tightening. Margaret, it's the police. My heart dropped into my stomach. David looked back at me, his face tense. Stay here, he whispered. Let me handle this first. But my body was already trembling. Why would the police be at his door in the middle of the night? Did they think I was somehow part of Daniel's mess? The knock came again, louder this time. Bang, bang, bang. Dallas Police Department. Open the door. David took a deep breath and opened it. 2 officers stood there, their flashlights cutting across the living room. One of them glanced past David, and his eyes landed on me. Ma'am, are you Margaret Carter? My throat went dry. I could barely force the words out. Yes. I am. The officer stepped forward. We need to ask you a few questions about your son, Daniel Carter. My chest tightened. It felt as if the air had been sucked from the room. Questions? Why? I don't know anything about his business. I swear. The second officer pulled out a small notebook. We understand that, ma'am. But earlier tonight, you were at his residence, correct? I froze. They knew. My mind flashed back to me sitting on the steps with my suitcase before the thief robbed me. Had someone seen me there? Yes, I admitted, my voice cracking. I went there. I just wanted to see him. But he turned me away. David squeezed my shoulder gently, as if to steady me. The first officer nodded slowly, scribbling something down. We're trying to establish a timeline. Witnesses reported seeing an older woman outside his home around the same time. A package was delivered to his front porch. A package? I frowned, confused. Yes, the officer said. And that package has now gone missing. We need to know if you saw anything, or anyone take it. My blood ran cold. My suitcase had been snatched outside his gate. Could it have been mistaken for this package? Or was the thief after something else entirely? I don't know, I stammered. Someone did steal my bag, but that was mine. It had my clothes and photos, my whole life. I swear I don't know anything about his package. The officers exchanged a look. David stepped in firmly. She's telling you the truth. She's been here with me since I picked her up tonight. Look, the woman has been through enough already. She doesn't deserve to be dragged into this. The officers hesitated, then nodded. We understand. But ma'am, if you remember anything at all, you need to contact us immediately. With that, they handed me a card and left. The flashing lights from their patrol car faded into the night, but the weight of their visit lingered in the room like smoke. I sank into the couch, shaking all over. David. What if they think I'm hiding something? What if I'm dragged into this mess because of Daniel? David sat beside me, his voice calm but firm. Margaret, listen to me. You did nothing wrong. This is your son's burden, not yours. But you need to be careful now. Whatever he's involved in, it's bigger than just fraud. His words struck me like thunder. Bigger than fraud? What could be bigger than millions of dollars missing? I looked down at my bandaged wrist, at the card the officers left behind, and for the first time in my life, I was afraid of my own son. And just when I thought things couldn't get worse, David's phone buzzed again. He looked at the screen and his face went pale. What is it? I asked, my heart pounding. He turned the phone so I could see. It was a text message from an unknown number. It said, "Keep your mouth shut about what you saw tonight, or you'll regret it." The phone slipped from David's hand and landed on the coffee table with a sharp clack. My stomach twisted as I stared at the glowing screen. Keep your mouth shut about what you saw tonight, or you'll regret it. My breath hitched. David, they know I was there. Someone's watching me. He picked the phone back up, his jaw tight. This isn't just about fraud anymore, Margaret. If people are sending threats, it means Daniel has gotten himself tangled up with dangerous people. I felt my chest tighten. My son, my baby boy, was he mixed up with criminals? I buried my face in my hands. All I ever wanted was for him to have a good life. I gave everything for him. How did it come to this? How could he shut me out while standing on the edge of ruin? David crouched in front of me. You can't blame yourself. You raised him with love. His choices are his own. But his words didn't ease the guilt clawing at me. I thought back to all the sacrifices. The nights I went hungry so Daniel could eat. The endless hours at the diner, scrubbing dishes until my hands bled. The times I held him when he was sick, praying God would give me the sickness instead. And now, after all that, my only son might be headed to prison, or worse. David placed a hand on my shoulder. Listen, whoever sent that message, they think you know something. But you don't. And that's dangerous because fear makes people act recklessly. We need to keep you safe. Safe. I whispered. I don't even know what safety feels like anymore. We sat in silence for a moment, the weight of everything pressing down. Then David's eyes lit up, as if a thought struck him. Margaret, tell me about that bag you lost tonight. You said it was stolen right outside Daniel's gate. Yes, I said, nodding. A man ran off with it. I thought he just wanted money. But what if he mistook it for that package the police mentioned? David rubbed his chin. Exactly. Maybe whoever was supposed to get that package thought you had it. That's why the threat came. The thought made my blood run cold. I wasn't just unwanted by my son anymore. I was in real danger. Suddenly, the house phone rang shrill and sharp in the silence. David jumped and grabbed it before the second ring. Hello, he said cautiously. His eyes narrowed. Who is this? I watched his expression change. His jaw clenched, and his hand gripped the receiver so tight his knuckles turned white. Finally, he spoke. If you ever call this number again, I swear. Then he slammed the phone down, his face pale. What did they say? I asked, my voice trembling. He looked at me with eyes full of warning. They said, she knows too much already. My body went cold from head to toe. David, what if they come after me? He stepped closer, his voice firm. Then they'll have to get through me first. But we can't stay here. If they found my number, they could find this house. We need to leave. Leave? I echoed, stunned. Where would we even go? David grabbed his car keys and looked me dead in the eye. Somewhere safe. I know a cabin out by the lake. No one will think to look for us there. But we have to move now. I hesitated, fear clawing at me. Running away at 67 years old? From my own son's mess? It sounded unreal. But the threat message still burned in my mind. I nodded slowly. All right, let's go. We packed quickly, moving through the dark house with the tension of hunted animals. My heart thudded with every creak of the floorboard. Finally, we stepped outside into the night. The air was heavy and still. David opened the car door for me and I climbed in, clutching my bandaged wrist. But just as David slid into the driver's seat and turned the ignition, a pair of headlights flared in the distance. A black SUV rolled slowly down the street and stopped right in front of David's house. The engine idled. The windows were tinted. And even from inside the car, I felt the weight of eyes watching us. The black SUV sat there, its engine rumbling like a growl in the night. My heart pounded so loud I was sure they could hear it from inside the car. David, I whispered, gripping his arm. They're watching us. He kept his eyes on the rearview mirror. Don't panic. We don't know who they are yet. But deep down we both knew. No neighbors sat in tinted SUVs at midnight. No friends waited silently with headlights off. This was no coincidence. The SUV didn't move. It just idled, blocking the road like a predator waiting for its prey to make the first move. David's hand tightened around the steering wheel. All right. Hold on, Margaret. With a sudden jerk, he threw the car into reverse, backing quickly out of the driveway. The SUV's headlights flared brighter as if it had been waiting for that moment. Then with a roar, it started following us. My body pressed back against the seat as fear clawed up my chest. They're chasing us, I cried. Stay calm, David said. His voice steady though his knuckles were white on the wheel. I know these streets better than they do. We'll lose them. He sped through the quiet neighborhood, turning sharply down side streets. The SUV followed close, its engine growling behind us, headlights glaring like twin eyes of a beast. Every corner we turned, they turned. Every shortcut they matched. It was a game of cat and mouse, and we were the mice. Finally, David swung onto the highway, tires screeching. The SUV surged after us, closing the distance. My heart raced so hard I thought it would break out of my chest. David, they're not going to stop. What if they catch us? Then we make sure they don't, he said firmly. He suddenly veered off the highway onto a dirt road that led toward the outskirts of town. Dust kicked up behind us, and for a brief moment, the SUV hesitated at the turn. Good, David muttered. They weren't expecting that. But within seconds the black shape appeared in the dust cloud again, bouncing hard over the uneven road as it chased us into the darkness. The road grew narrower, trees closing in on both sides. My palms were slick with sweat as I clutched the seatbelt. Then, without warning, the SUV accelerated and rammed into the back of our car. Bam! I screamed, my body lurching forward. The seatbelt cut into my shoulder. David fought to keep control of the wheel as the car skidded on the dirt. They're trying to run us off the road, he shouted. The SUV rammed us again, harder this time. The back window shattered, glass raining into the car. I covered my face, sobbing. David, they'll kill us. Not if I can help it. He swerved sharply, the car fishtailing as the SUV loomed dangerously close. Suddenly, up ahead, I saw it. A narrow wooden bridge crossing over the lake. The road was so thin only one car could pass at a time. David's eyes locked on it. If we make it across, we can buy some time. Hold on. The car roared forward, tires screeching as we hit the bridge. The wooden planks groaned under the weight, echoing into the night. But as we reached the middle, the SUV slammed into us one last time, sending our car crashing through the wooden railing. The world spun. My scream tore through the night as the car plunged off the bridge, crashing into the dark waters below. Everything went black. The impact hit like a hammer. 1 second I was screaming inside the car. The next, icy water smashed against my body as we plunged into the lake. The shock of the cold stole my breath. Darkness swallowed everything. The car groaned as it sank deeper, bubbles rushing past my face. My bandaged wrist throbbed as I clawed for the seatbelt. Margaret! Unbuckle! David's voice was muffled, panicked. My fingers fumbled, slippery and weak. The seatbelt jammed. Water was rising fast, filling the car up to my chest. My lungs burned. David, I can't. I cried, choking on water. He shoved across the seat, fighting the weight of the lake pressing in on us. His hands grabbed the buckle, yanking with all his strength. Finally it clicked open. Go! Out the window! He shouted. I turned toward the shattered back glass. My heart hammered as I forced my body through, jagged edges scratching my arms. The cold was so brutal I thought my heart would stop. David pushed me upward, his strength carrying me toward the moonlight shimmering faintly above the surface. My chest screamed for air. My arms felt heavy as stone. At last, splash! I broke through, gasping and coughing, my throat burning. I kicked wildly, the dark waves pulling me down again. David! I shouted, but water splashed into my mouth. Then I saw him, breaking the surface a few feet away, his face pale but determined. Swim, he yelled. We've got to get to shore before they circle back. I kicked with every ounce of strength left in me. The water dragged at my clothes, but fear pushed me forward. We reached the muddy edge of the lake and collapsed onto the shore, gasping like fish pulled from the sea. I lay on my back, staring at the night sky, my body shaking violently from cold and shock. Every breath was a battle. David crawled over and helped me sit up. Are you all right? He panted. I nodded weakly, though my body screamed with pain. We almost died, David. They tried to kill us. His jaw tightened. No, they didn't try. They meant to. Which means, Margaret, you're in the middle of something much bigger than your son just cheating investors. I wrapped my arms around myself, sobbing. Why, David? Why would Daniel be mixed up with people like this? I raised him better than that. David put a hand on my shoulder, his eyes dark. Because greed changes people. And sometimes, love can't save them. His words cut deep. But before I could answer, headlights glared again in the distance, across the lake. The SUV had stopped on the opposite shore. I froze, my heart slamming in my chest. They're still watching us. David narrowed his eyes. They won't risk coming into the water, not now. But this isn't over. If they know where we are, they'll come again. My teeth chattered as I hugged myself tighter. What do we do? David stared into the darkness, his voice grim. We find out exactly what Daniel is hiding. And fast. Because until we do, they won't stop hunting you. I trembled harder. Not just from the cold, but from the truth settling in. My son hadn't just shut me out. He had dragged me into a deadly storm. And the next time they found us, I knew. We might not escape alive. The night felt endless. My clothes clung to me, heavy and wet, my teeth chattering as David led me through the woods away from the lake. Every shadow made me flinch. Every crack of a twig made my heart jump. When we finally reached an old hunter's cabin tucked between the trees, David broke the lock with a rock and guided me inside. It was dusty, the air stale, but it was shelter. He found an old quilt in a trunk and wrapped it around my shoulders. I sat shivering by the cold fireplace, staring into the dark. My mind kept replaying the image of the SUV ramming us into the lake. They wanted me dead. I whispered, David, what if they come back? He knelt beside me, his hand steady on my shoulder. They will. But not tonight. Tonight you need to rest. Tomorrow, we start finding answers. But I couldn't rest. The words of the police echoed in my mind. A package went missing. And the thief who stole my suitcase, was it really a mistake? Or was that bag tied to whatever Daniel had gotten into? By dawn my body ached, but my mind was sharper. I turned to David. We need to go back, to Daniel's house. Maybe there's something there that explains all this. David frowned. It's risky. The police will be crawling all over it by now. I don't care, I said firmly. I need to know the truth about my son. I need to know what he's hiding from me. Reluctantly, David agreed. After we found dry clothes in an old trunk, we made our way back into town. As we approached Daniel's neighborhood, my heart pounded. Police cars lined the street. Yellow tape stretched across the gate. Reporters swarmed outside, shouting questions to anyone passing by. David parked a block away, and we slipped through a side alley. From the back fence we saw the chaos. FBI agents carrying out boxes of documents, cameras flashing nonstop. I gripped David's arm. They're tearing his life apart. No, David said grimly. He tore it apart himself. That's when I saw it. Through an upstairs window, half covered by curtains, a figure moved. Not a police officer. Not Daniel. It was someone else, quickly shoving things into a bag. My breath caught. David, someone still inside. His eyes narrowed. And whoever it is, they're not supposed to be there. We circled quietly to the back gate, slipping in while the reporters swarmed the front. My heart thundered as we crept through the yard. Inside the house, the air was tense, heavy with the smell of paper and dust. We moved quietly up the stairs, following the sound of hurried footsteps. At the end of the hallway, a door was half open. Through the crack, I saw a woman stuffing envelopes into a leather briefcase. My stomach dropped when I recognized her. Lisa, I whispered. Daniel's wife. She was trembling, her hands shaking as she shoved documents inside the bag. Her eyes darted to the window as if she was planning to escape. Why would she be here? I muttered. The police are all over the place. David put a finger to his lips, then leaned close. Because she's hiding something. Before we could decide what to do, Lisa turned suddenly, her eyes locking on mine. She froze, then her face twisted in panic. Margaret, what are you doing here? She hissed. I stepped forward, my voice shaking. I could ask you the same thing, Lisa. What's in that bag? Her face drained of color. She clutched the briefcase to her chest. You don't understand. If they find this, Daniel will go to prison for the rest of his life. I stared at her, my knees weak. What have you both done? Lisa glanced toward the door, then back at me. Her voice was frantic. I don't have time to explain. Just stay out of it, Margaret. If you love your son, you'll let me handle this. But before I could answer, heavy footsteps pounded up the stairs. FBI agents shouted from the hallway. "Freeze! Don't move!" Lisa's eyes widened in terror. She clutched the briefcase and bolted toward the window. "Lisa, no!" I cried. But she threw open the glass and leapt, vanishing from sight. The agents burst into the room, guns raised, shouting commands. David pulled me back, his arm shielding me. My heart pounded so hard it felt like it would rip through my chest. Lisa was gone. And with her, the secrets that could destroy my son forever. "Where did she go?" one of the FBI agents shouted, rushing to the window. I staggered forward, gripping the wall for support. My whole body shook as I looked down. Lisa was already sprinting across the neighbor's yard, the briefcase clutched tight against her chest. "She's running!" another agent yelled, pushing past us. The room exploded into chaos. Agents stormed down the stairs, their radios crackling. David pulled me aside, whispering sharply, "We need to move. If they start asking questions, they'll drag you in too." "But Lisa, she knows everything," I said desperately. "That briefcase, it's the truth about Daniel." "I know it." David's eyes hardened. "Then we have to find her before they do." We slipped out through the back door while the agents swarmed the front. My heart hammered as we cut through the alleyways, trying to catch sight of her. But Lisa was fast, fear driving her like a hunted animal. At last, we spotted her near the train station, fumbling with tickets at the machine. Her hair was wild, her eyes darting around like she expected someone to grab her at any second. "Lisa!" called, my voice breaking. She froze, spinning toward me. For a moment I thought she'd run. But instead tears filled her eyes. "Margaret, you don't understand. If they catch me with this, Daniel's finished." I stepped closer, my voice trembling. "Lisa, please. Tell me the truth. What has my son done?" Her lips quivered, her hands tightening around the briefcase. "It started as an investment scheme. Harmless, or so he thought. But the people behind it, they're dangerous, Margaret. Cartel money. Laundering through fake companies. Millions." The words struck like lightning. My knees nearly buckled. "Cartel?" She nodded, sobbing now. "He wanted out, but it was too late. They threatened him. They threatened us. That's why he pushed you away. He thought if you weren't close, you'd be safe." Safe? The memory of the SUV ramming us into the lake burned through my mind. My voice cracked. "Safe? They already tried to kill me, Lisa." Her eyes widened in horror. No, that can't be." Before she could finish, a black van screeched around the corner. Doors flew open and masked men leapt out. "Run!" David shouted, yanking me back. Lisa clutched the briefcase tighter and bolted toward the train platform. The men gave chase, their footsteps thunderous. David dragged me behind a pillar as chaos erupted. Passengers screamed, scattering in every direction. I peeked around just in time to see one of the men grab Lisa's arm. She fought, kicking wildly, but they were stronger. The briefcase slipped from her hands, clattering across the floor. "Lisa!" I screamed. Her eyes met mine, full of terror, full of pleading. "Margaret, don't let them." "Avondor schlemd." Tires screeched. And just like that, Lisa was gone. The briefcase lay abandoned on the platform. Papers had spilled out, fluttering across the ground. David didn't hesitate. He darted forward, snatching the case before anyone else could. Then he grabbed my hand, pulling me back into the shadows. My whole body trembled. They took her. David, they took Lisa." His jaw clenched. "And if we're not careful, you'll be next. Come on, we can't stay here." We slipped out of the station, my chest heaving with sobs. I looked back one last time at the platform, the briefcase clutched tightly in David's grip. Lisa was gone. But now, for the first time, the truth about Daniel was in my hands. And I wasn't sure if I wanted to see it. I couldn't sleep that night. The image of Lisa being dragged into that van replayed in my mind over and over again. Her desperate eyes burning into my soul. I sat on the edge of my bed, staring at the briefcase David had placed on the table. It was heavy both in weight and in meaning. David paced the floor, his jaw tight. "We can't just open it here. If anyone followed us, if they know we have this, we're targets." I shook my head, clutching the blanket around me. "They already tried to kill me once, David. I need to know what's inside. I need the truth. Reluctantly, he came over and opened the case. Papers spilled out, bank statements, contracts, photographs. My heart stopped when I saw Daniel's handwriting. His signature. His name tied to shell companies I had never heard of. Margaret. David's voice was low, almost pitying. This isn't small. This isn't just bad investments. This is organized crime. The words sliced through me. Organized crime. My Daniel. My son. I picked up one of the photos. It showed Daniel shaking hands with a man I didn't recognize. But the name scrawled on the back made my blood run cold. Ramon Cruz. Even I had heard that name whispered in Dallas. Cruz was no ordinary businessman. He was a cartel enforcer, the kind of man who left bodies in ditches as warnings. Tears blurred my eyes. No. No, Daniel wouldn't do this. He wouldn't. David crouched in front of me, his eyes firm. Margaret. He did. And now you have to decide, are you going to keep protecting him? Or are you going to save yourself? Before I could answer, a sudden crash echoed outside. Both of us froze. The sound of footsteps crunched on the gravel driveway. A shadow passed across the window. David's face hardened. He grabbed the briefcase, stuffed the papers back inside and hissed, "They found us." My heart pounded as the doorknob rattled. Someone was trying to get in. I held my breath, every nerve in my body screaming. Then, bang! The door exploded open, and masked men stormed into my living room. The door slammed against the wall as 3 masked men rushed inside, their boots thundering against the wooden floor. One of them barked orders in a language I didn't understand, while another pointed a gun straight at me. I froze in terror, my hands shaking uncontrollably. David shoved me behind him, his body tense like a coiled spring. "Stay calm," he whispered to me, his voice low but steady. "Don't make any sudden moves." The tallest man stepped forward, his mask pulled tight over his face, only his cold eyes visible. He jabbed a finger toward the briefcase. "Give it." David clutched it tighter, his jaw set. "You're not taking this." The man cocked his gun, the sound chilling in the silence. "Then you die." My knees buckled. I wanted to scream, to beg, but no sound came out. My mind screamed only one thought: Daniel. My son dragged me into this mess. My boy did this. Suddenly, David swung the briefcase with all his strength, smashing it into the man's wrist. The gun clattered to the floor. "Run, Margaret," he shouted. Chaos erupted. The men lunged at David, fists flying. I scrambled toward the kitchen, my heart hammering so hard I thought it would burst. I grabbed the first thing I saw, a cast iron skillet, and clutched it in both hands. One of the men spotted me and lunged. I swung the skillet with every ounce of fear and fury inside me. The clang echoed through the room as it connected with his shoulder, sending him stumbling. "Go," David roared, wrestling with another attacker. I bolted for the back door, fumbling with the lock, tears blinding my vision. Just as I flung it open, a hand yanked me back by the hair. I screamed, clawing at the masked face behind me. The man hissed in my ear, "Where's the briefcase, old woman?" Before I could answer, David tackled him from behind, slamming him into the wall. The briefcase slid across the floor, landing near my feet. "Take it and run," David shouted again, his voice desperate. I hesitated, my heart breaking. "I can't leave you. You have to. Go." The masked man on the floor pulled a knife from his belt, swinging wildly. David grunted as the blade grazed his arm, but he didn't let go. Blood stained his sleeve, his teeth gritted against the pain. I grabbed the briefcase, my body shaking so hard I could barely hold it. Tears streamed down my face as I stumbled out the back door into the freezing night. Behind me I heard shouting, gunfire, and then silence. I ran through the dark alley, clutching the briefcase to my chest, not daring to look back. When I finally stopped, gasping for air under a flickering streetlight, one thought echoed louder than my heartbeat. Had I just left David to die for a son who had abandoned me? I stumbled down the dark streets, clutching the briefcase so tightly my fingers went numb. My chest burned with every breath, my legs weak, but I couldn't stop. The night air was cold against my tear-streaked face, and my mind screamed only one question. Was David still alive? I ducked into an alley, crouching behind a dumpster, trying to steady my breath. My hands trembled as I pressed my forehead against the cold metal of the briefcase. This was supposed to be my son's. His responsibility. His burden. Yet here I was, an old woman, running through the night, hunted like an animal, because of him. Suddenly my phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out with shaking hands. An unknown number. My gut twisted. I answered. Achelu. A deep voice crackled through the line. Mrs. Parker. My stomach dropped. Who is this? Where's the case? The man demanded. His voice was calm, but there was menace in every syllable. I froze. They had my number. They were watching me. You have until sunrise, he continued. Bring it, or you'll wish you never had a son. The line went dead. I nearly dropped the phone, my whole body trembling. My son. They weren't after me. They were after Daniel. And now, I was their leverage. Before I could think further, headlights swept across the alley. A black SUV rolled slowly past, then stopped. My breath caught. The driver's door opened. But it wasn't one of the masked men. Margaret. I gasped. David stumbled out of the SUV, bloodied but alive. His arm was bandaged, his face pale. You're alive, I whispered, tears spilling. He grabbed my arm firmly. We don't have time. They'll trace that call. We need to move. We slipped into the SUV, and David sped off, the tires screeching against the asphalt. My heart pounded, torn between relief and terror. As the city lights blurred by, I finally asked the question burning inside me. David, what happens if we open this case and hand it to the FBI? He shot me a quick glance. Then Daniel goes to prison. For a long time. My chest tightened. Prison. My son. My boy I had sacrificed everything for. I pressed a hand against my mouth, choking back sobs. But if I don't, I lose everything else. My freedom. My life. David's voice was grim. You already lost everything, Margaret. The only thing left to lose is your soul. Just then, headlights flared in the rearview mirror. A black van was tailing us. My blood turned to ice. They've found us, David muttered, pressing his foot harder on the gas. The chase had begun. The roar of the engine filled my ears as David slammed his foot on the gas. The SUV lurched forward, tires screeching against the asphalt. My heart hammered so hard I thought it might burst. I glanced back. Two masked men leaned out of the van's windows, their faces hidden in the shadows. One of them raised something shiny. My stomach dropped. Gun! I screamed. A deafening crack split the night as bullets shattered the rear window. Glass rained down around me. I ducked, clutching the briefcase to my chest. Hold on, David shouted. He swerved sharply onto a side street, the SUV nearly tipping as he fought to stay ahead. The van followed, its headlights burning like the eyes of a predator. The city blurred around us, traffic lights, empty storefronts, stray dogs scattering into the night. My fingers dug into the seat, knuckles white. David, they're going to kill us. I cried. Not if I can help it, he growled, gripping the wheel tighter. Another round of gunfire rattled through the air. The back tire blew out with a loud bang, the SUV wobbling violently. My stomach flipped as the car skidded across the road. David cursed, yanking the wheel. We can't outrun them now. Fear surged through me like ice water. Then what do we do? He shot me a look, his eyes hard. We fight. Before I could respond, the SUV slammed into a row of trash cans, jerking to a stop. The van screeched to a halt behind us, doors flying open. Masked men spilled out, guns glinting under the streetlight. David grabbed a pistol from under the driver's seat and shoved it into my hands. I froze, staring at it. I can't. You can, he cut me off. It's your life or theirs. My hand shook so badly the gun almost slipped from my fingers. I had never held one before. Never dreamed I'd be in a situation like this. The men advanced, their heavy boots pounding closer. One shouted, "Give us the case and maybe you live." David raised his weapon, firing 2 quick shots. One man dropped, another dove for cover. The sound was deafening, echoing through the empty street. I crouched low, clutching the briefcase in one arm and the gun in the other. Tears blurred my vision, fear choking me. But deep down I knew David was right. If I didn't act, I'd die here. One of the masked men rounded the side of the SUV. His gun pointed straight at me. "Now!" David yelled. My fingers squeezed the trigger before I could think. The gun kicked back hard, the shot echoing in my ears. The man staggered back, his weapon clattering to the ground. I had hit him. My stomach churned, horror washing over me. But there was no time to feel it, because more footsteps thundered from the shadows. Reinforcements. We were surrounded. The street was alive with footsteps, shadows moving in every direction. I gripped the briefcase with one hand and the gun with the other, my body trembling like a leaf in the wind. My ears still rang from the shot I fired, my heart thundering inside my chest. David crouched beside me, blood seeping through his bandage, his breathing ragged. "They've got us surrounded," he whispered. I swallowed hard, tears welling in my eyes. "We can't win this, David. There's too many." He looked at me, his face pale but resolute. Sometimes winning doesn't mean walking away. Sometimes it means making sure the right person pays. Before I could ask what he meant, a deep voice cut through the night. "Mrs. Parker." I froze. It was the same voice from the phone. A tall man stepped out from the shadows, his mask gone now. His face was lean, scarred, and cold as stone. He walked slowly, confidently, as if he already owned the moment. Behind him, his men fanned out, guns raised. "Hand over the case," he said simply, "and this ends." My whole body trembled. I thought of Daniel, my son, my flesh and blood, the boy I had raised, the man I had sacrificed my life for, the same son who had abandoned me, who had dragged me into this nightmare. I wanted to scream, to throw the case at the man's feet and beg for my life. But then, I heard David's words echo in my head. "The only thing left to lose is your soul." I took a shaky breath, my voice trembling but steady enough to speak. "If I give this to you, more people will suffer. More families will be destroyed." "No." The man's eyes narrowed. His voice dropped to a growl. "Then you die here." Time slowed. Guns raised. My chest heaved. I thought of Daniel one last time. Not the man he had become, but the boy he once was, running through the yard barefoot, laughing in the summer sun. I whispered under my breath, "Goodbye, my son." Then a shout split the night. "FBI! Drop your weapons!" Blinding floodlights flared from both ends of the street. Black vans screeched in, doors flying open as agents in body armor poured out, guns trained on the cartel. The cartel men panicked, some raising their guns, others dropping them. Gunfire erupted, chaos exploding all around us. I dropped to the ground, clutching the briefcase, covering my head as bullets whizzed through the air. David pulled me behind the SUV, shielding me with his body as agents swarmed. The fight was brutal but quick. Within minutes, the cartel was on the ground, handcuffed and defeated. An agent rushed to me, helping me to my feet. "Mrs. Parker? You're safe now." Safe. The word felt foreign. My body shook so violently I could barely stand. The scarred man, now pinned to the ground, glared at me with pure hatred. "This isn't over, old woman. Blood always comes back." His words cut deep, but I forced myself to look away. An agent carefully took the briefcase from my trembling hands. "This evidence will put your son away for a long time." My heart twisted. There it was, the final truth. Daniel would go to prison. My boy, my sacrifice, my everything. And he had shut me out, left me to die. Tears streamed down my face as I whispered, "I gave him my whole life, and he gave me nothing but pain." David placed a steadying hand on my shoulder. "Sometimes, Margaret, love means letting go, even when it breaks you." I closed my eyes, letting the tears fall freely. The night was cold, the sirens wailed, and the weight of years of sacrifice pressed down on me. But somewhere deep inside, I felt a quiet strength. I had survived. I had stood up. And though my heart was shattered, my soul remained mine. Viewers, if you're still with me till the end of this painful journey, I want you to take something from my story. Never sacrifice everything for people who don't value you. Love your family, yes, but never lose yourself in the process. Thank you so much for watching. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, and click the notification bell for more stories like this. And tell me, from which part of the country are you watching this from? I'd love to know. Because this was my story, Broken heart. I sacrificed everything for them, only to be shut out by my son.